Hey there guys, it's Ghost Boy here, and today I want to talk about the next possible archetype that could be in the structure deck for December. Shaddoll! The Duelist Alliance deck that was both flip-based and fusion-based. So, ideally, a structure deck supports them so they can go to the next level, aka be at least a rogue contender. I think they could be meta. I think they could still be meta, depending on the support they get, and if Construct comes back to at least two. At least two. Honestly, I prefer it to go back to one. I mean, not back to one. It's already at one. Duh. What are they going to do? You can now have one Construct. It didn't change anything. I'm sorry. I'm mad. I'm mad about Construct being at one. I want it to come back to three. Three of them. Yeah. And Shaddoll is a stun-based archetype. I'm going to go over a few ideas that I had that might improve the archetype. I'll try to go from in order. I think I'm going to go over what they can do with the extra deck, then what they can do with the spell trap support, and then finally what they could do with, say, the main deck monsters. And I still think that all the main deck monsters should be flipped because that's kind of gimmick. Okay, for extra deck monsters, what could they do? What could they do for extra deck monsters that could potentially help them? They can make another Link monster, but what would she do? I feel like a Link monster is supposed to help you support your plays or negate stuff. And most Shaddolls have pretty much the negation covered and like the control plays covered as far as their fusions. I think it should be a fusion enabler. I think it should basically be a walking fusion recovery for them. If you get fusion summon a Shaddoll fusion monster from your extra deck, you can add up to 2 Shaddoll cards from your graveyard and or banish pile to your hand. That is what I would love to see that's effect be, and I think it should just be simple. 2 Shaddoll monsters, and it has these link markers, the bottom left and the bottom right. Simple, link 2, link brains. Conversely, they could make 2 more fusion. One kind of fusion, and they can make another kind of fusion. They could make another light fusion to kind of replace our support construct if they don't want to ban her. But what could she do? I'd see the only possible option here as it having like the standard sent to the graveyard, get a Shaddoll spell trap from your graveyard to your hand. That's obvious. I think you could have an effect similar to Ray, the Glass Witchcrafter, where you just send a Shaddoll monster from your hand to the graveyard in order to negate everything your opponent has until the end of the turn. That way it follows a theme, it sets up the graveyard, and it also gives you a Shaddoll effect from your hand right away. Conversely, they could also have a fusion that consisted of 2 El Shaddolls, and basically make it like Elysium. Like Elysium from the Invoked, and just make it an extremely powerful fusion monster. I think it could have up to twice per turn you could send a Shaddoll from one of its effects. It basically will be you and Nizami. Once you can send one from your hand, once you can send one from your deck, banish a card that your opponent controls. Non-targeting removal. Also, I don't think it should be allowed to be destroyed by card effects, and I think it should have at least 3,500 attack. I don't know what it'd be called, but there's something there. Okay, for spell and trap supports, I'm going to sort this out into 2 categories. There's going to be fusions that I think they could kind of cater to them, and I think there's other cards. So I'm going to start with the other cards. They could definitely use a Rhoda. Just add any Shaddoll monster from your hand to your deck. They could maybe use a new field spell, although I don't see why. They could use a battle trap, maybe. They could also use something that would reset all their flip-based effects. This is probably the set of cards that I came up with the least, because I don't think they're going to give them much generic support that's actually good. There is an effect that I want, and it could be Spell Trap, and I'll mention that when I mention it with the monsters, but As far as spells and traps, I really thought up these fusions. There's 2 fusions that I like, 2 that I don't like so much if they were to make them. The 2 that I don't like so much would be a Super Poly retrain for Shaddolls. And that's because, simply put, Super Poly is a good place where it is. It's at 1, it can still be used by Shaddolls, and it still gets all their effects. I don't think they necessarily would need a certain, just a generic Super Poly for Shaddolls if they could have other stuff going for them. Secondly, it would be Miracle Fusion. I just think it's boring, honestly. I think it's a little bit too boring, and Shaddolls have a problem with recurring their resources into their deck. If they could shuffle more resources back into the deck, that would solve a lot of their problems to me. They just don't have enough resources to last for very long if they run out. So that's a majority of what the support should be, I think. Okay, the 2 that I like, one is Absorb Fusion. I want an Absorb Fusion, but for Shaddolls. And they've already copied a kind of fusion card for Shaddolls in the art for Shaddoll Fusion itself. So Absorb Fusion lets you add any Gem Knight and then immediately fuse out there. So I think that's kind of what it should do. So it could be a Rhoda and a fusion card in one. That would be awesome for Shaddolls. Another one I would like is Thunder Dragon Fusion, but for Shaddolls, where you could just recur your resources back into the deck. You might not get the Shaddoll send effects, but you can get recursion, and that's what I think the deck lacks, because it's a control deck, has a few aggressive feats, but it lacks recursion and much defense. It doesn't have that much comeback ability if you defeat all the things in the graveyard for you. So monsters. I'm going to go ahead and say it. This is the card that I think could either fit in with a spell trap. There's 2 that could actually be spells or traps. One would be a version of Disciples of the True Draco Disciples, or whatever it's called. It's the one where you take 3 True Draco cards from your deck, shuffle them, and then draw one. It's basically a Jar of Avarice, but it's continuous. They would love something that gives them a draw every turn and something that recurs every turn. That would be awesome. That could be a monster somehow. Maybe it's got a flip effect that could basically be a Jar of Mole or an Avarice. Shuffle 5 Shaddoll cards, draw 2. That could work too. And they definitely need more attribute changing. This could also be a spell trap. It'd be fine that way. But if it's a monster, I want it to have it every turn without really losing a resource from it. I think it should be like kind of like an Elemental Saber. While this card is in the graveyard, you can target one Shaddoll monster you control and change its attribute to one that you desire. So that means you could play a more pure version of Shaddolls rather than mixing it with other stuff. You could still mix it with other stuff, but that would be awesome for the decks that would prefer to play more pure stuff. I don't think they lack draw power. I think they lack recursion necessarily, and like I said, they need more change attribute kind of things. Another aspect to go would be give them a generic main deck monster of every attribute, but I don't think they're going to do that, so an attribute change from the graveyard every turn would be still pretty nice. They don't like draw power at all. I already went over their other aspects, but they don't like draw power. They got Spellbook of Knowledge, they got Beast, they got Hedgehog's Flip Effect. They got enough stuff that all they would basically need for consistency would be maybe a Rhoda and Recursion. So, what do you think? Do you guys got any ideas for what Shaddolls could do better? Please like, comment, and share my video, and maybe even subscribe if you like the content I'm producing. Thank you, and guys, you have a nice day.